it was very much a kind of silent protest for the first half, you know. And to be honest, it's quite effective, you know. It wasn't quite back to the COVID years, but you could hear every shout for the players. There was nothing coming for the stands at all. And in terms of making a point through utter silence, it certainly got through. 3 goals, barely raised a cheer. But it was quite funny that these fans sitting with their mouths clamped kind of forgot to keep it that way whenever they didn't like a decision that came to the referee, Ross Hardy, you know.
Well, they reserve the right to always pick an official. That's
the only thing that raised more than a murmur the whole first half. But look, we're all just waiting to fast forward to the 55th minute to see if the Union Bears and how many others would kind of follow through with their threat to walk out. And first of all, the very fact St Johnstone scored in 54 minutes, you just couldn't write that stuff, you know, as if to say, here, take this goal with you, lads. There you go. You can't write the irony. But then the actual walkout that came a minute later kind of backfired as well. It had been so widely publicised, everyone was sitting just waiting for it. But when it did arrive, there was so many of them tried to get out, they kind of forgot that the exits wouldn't be big enough for them all to just suddenly disappear. So it was almost like forming an orderly queue, lads, you know. All the while, the rest of the stadium had decided to stay back and support the team, gave them absolute dog's abuse. So I don't think it quite went the way the Union Bears hoped. And it certainly smacked of divides moving from between the support base and the board to actually just between the support base themselves. So a bit of a mess, all in all. But
that sort of encapsulates the whole situation at Ibrox, doesn't it? A bit of a mess.
It does.
And these guys aren't even. I don't think the main kind of target now in terms of protesting is even Clement. I think it's wider than that. It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
It's a dissatisfaction with the club. It's a dissatisfaction with the regime in charge. The biggest danger, as we discussed, is that it becomes kind of like an apathy and a shrug of the shoulders. And do you know what? There's better things to do on a Saturday afternoon because you might not get them back again. And bear in mind that this is a club now that's been walking around in circles now for the best part of 10 years since Dave King and Paul Murray got inside to rescue it. It has been a form of fan ownership. It hasn't worked. It's delivered one title. Rangers are going nowhere. And I think that, you know, when it gets into a situation like this, the call now for Rangers, and I've said it over and over for a period of time now, it actually, they're right. I'm not a big fan of ultras and the ultra culture, but these guys are actually right. Rangers do require regime change. Yeah. It needs a recalibration. The sort of bowling club mentality at the top of the staircase, it has to be obliterated. Rangers need something new. They need something fresh. They need something contemporary, modern, outward-looking, all the things that this Rangers board isn't. So I can completely get why the fans have got to this point. But then you've got this kind of side issue is that there actually are... Rangers fans, by their nature, aren't a very militant bunch. Celtic fans are more militant. You kind of get the feeling there's a vast majority of Rangers fans that just, you know, they just want to go along, and as long as their team's winning on a Saturday afternoon on the pitch, then everything's hunky-dory. But the young crew are clearly disenfranchised now for a variety of reasons, but it feels stale. Rangers feel stale. So I think these guys are right to be calling for change. I genuinely do think there was an old banner that came out around about the time when David Murray was in charge, that Rangers fans deserve better. Well, when you think about what these Rangers fans have been through over the last 12 years or so, they probably do. It's probably fair. But it's just going to be fascinating to see if there's any prospect of that happening.
It's not often I say this, Keith, but the comment section seems to be agreeing with you as well. I mean, Darren here says it's not very often I agree with you, Keith, but today I am fair play to the Union Bears. The board have been disgusting to the Rangers fans. D-Man says, in fairness to the Union Bears, they're the ones who spend time and a fortune following the team everywhere, which I think is a fair point as well. Rangers is okay.
Not the only ones, though.
Of course. Rangers Easy OK says, feels like two different supports at the minute. The ones who stayed were definitely majority older, and the ones who left, myself included, were younger and haven't had any taste of sustained success. So it definitely speaks to what you're saying, Fraser, a very kind of divided feel at the minute.
Aye, look, them and the rest of Scottish football haven't had any sustained success since the days of Walter Smith. I know you're talking about Walter Smith yesterday, but I mean, what can you go back other than the Steven Gerrard COVID year? Only Alec McLeish and Dick Advocaat have won titles in the last 36 years, nearly 40 years for Rangers. So they're falling so far behind Celtic. That's the worry. If you're talking for regime change, Keith, are you talking about the guys that have just come in? You're talking about the new chairman, the new CEO, just underneath that? I mean, do these guys deserve to get a chance to put their footprint on the club? Is it enough to take a step backwards to try and take two forwards? I've always had the impression that this season it's almost like Clement has been told to clean up his squad, to reduce the age, to reduce the wage bracket, to try and bring in, along with the recruitment team, to try and bring in some future assets that will make them serious money. And if they can bring in a piece of silverware on top of that, that's a bonus. Now, I don't think anyone would admit to that, but you wonder why he's still in place given the shocking away form.
I think he's still in place because
to me this season.
He's still in place by default, Fraser, on account of the fact that when it was at its worst, there was one financial issue which Patrick Stewart has denied, but two, there was nobody there that could actually pull the trigger on him. And I actually think it came very, very close, maybe around about the start of December. But they stuck with, and then Patrick Stewart came in, the new chairman. Am I talking about them as part of regime change? Well, no, I'm talking about, if some fresh eyes were to come in at boardroom level, then, these guys are only just in the door. Maybe you'd want to give them a shot. You'd want to see, have they got a vision of their own? Are they capable of moving it forward? But yeah, I mean, do you know what? I think if Rangers were to get fresh eyes on the inside, then, does anybody really care what happens to Patrick Stewart or Fraser Thornton? They're just more bodies, it's just more names. That Rangers can't continue to run in such a myopic kind of fashion, where nobody's looking beyond the end of their nose. It really needs something more far-sighted, exciting, something to reconnect with the supporters who have had enough. Mm-hmm. They're tired of watching the same mistakes being made by the same people and ending with the same results, which is hardly anything to put in the trophy cabinet.
I think that's why it's quite surprising this independent review that started today is bringing in, they're bringing in outsiders apparently to have a root and branch review of all things Rangers, the footballing department. A wee bit strange given that Patrick Stewart's just come in, Fraser Thornton's just come in. They finally got bodies in all those positions that were lacking in the first half of the season. Why are these guys not sorting out the problems? It's almost like they don't trust the guys that are in position there. Mm-hmm.
That might be pretty prudent and astute as well. I'm not sure that I would. I think it's long overdue.